Welcome back to What the Fuck is Going On. We have a great show for you today. China and Russia are forming an unholy alliance. We are covering a potential Trump indictment in the coming days. And what's the third one?
Riots in France.
Riots in France. We got all that and more. Let's get into it. Welcome back, Kev.
Welcome back, Rob.
Been a hot minute, bro.
It's been a minute where we're back.
We took a little hiatus, couple trips, knee injury. Things happened. Today is Tuesday, right?
Tuesday, March 28th.
Tuesday, March 28th. And once again, there has been a tragic mass shooting on the day we're recording.
We promise we're not doing that on purpose.
Yeah. And honestly, I'm getting a little, obviously everyone is getting sick of it to, the degree that it's a horrible tragedy. But like every time we have the same conversation, if you support Republicans and gun control, thoughts and prayers don't mean anything, fine, whatever. That's fine. I just think people need to be putting the same amount of enthusiasm into calls for gun control legislation that they are for mental health care and Medicare for all.
Mm-hmm.
Because repeatedly this happens. It's always people who are very clearly mentally ill. It's always people who they have multiple reports and instances of them. Like, no one's ever surprised. They go, oh, yeah, so-and-so. And this one just happened to be somebody who's born a woman and now identifies as a man, transgender. I don't think that matters. I think right-wing people who are using that as, look, it's not like that. That's just as disingenuous as people on the left using it as a call for gun control.
Mm-hmm.
Advancing your political agenda because someone died is like the new American pastime. And I just real quick, again, like I said, I don't want to harp on this. We're not going to say the name of the person. We're not going to, show pictures of the victim. 6 dead. It's tragic. We all know that. But I just wanted to play a couple videos of the Biden response. This is a video of him like immediately after it happened.
My name is Joe Biden. I'm Dr. Joe Biden's husband. And I ate Jenny's ice cream, chocolate chip. I came down because I heard there was chocolate chip ice cream. By the way, I have a whole refrigerator full upstairs. You think I'm kidding? I'm not. God. Ben, how are you, pal? One of the best guys in the United States Congress, Ben Cardin. Folks, welcome to the White House. It's a delight to have you all here. And who are those good-looking kids back there? They're your kids, all 4 of them? Well, stand up, guys.
It's like I was trying to figure out a way to look at it from like the transgender side. I can't lie to you.
Yeah.
But like it doesn't matter.
Who cares?
It is a mental health issue.
It's a murderer.
It is a murderer, and there's always a red flag.
Yeah.
Like you were
every single time.
Mm-hmm.
We've covered like 10 of them on this show now in a very short period we've been doing it. And the guy from Buffalo, Gendry, like everyone was like, yeah, he like brought a knife to school. Yeah, this person had a manifesto too. I don't really.
Let's not beat a dead horse,
Yeah, exactly. And I wanted to play one more clip from Biden.
I have no idea.
Josh Foley believes they were. What do you say to that?
Well, I probably don't then.
Probably don't.
No, I'm joking. No, I have no idea.
And that just to sort of highlight, like, I don't know if it's a reflection of him just being shot, which he is, or like our country just being so desensitized to this stuff. It happens every day that we're just like not taking it seriously anymore. Like the president, for better or worse, is a reflection of the country, of the people. Like, and we're all like, I make jokes about him all the time. Like I'm of the school of if you don't laugh, you're gonna cry. Like that's my coping mechanism is humor. But like literally they were like, someone, I forget who, some Republican congressman was like, this was an attack on Christians because I think it was a Christian school. And someone told Biden that, and because the guy's a Republican, Biden joked like, "Oh, well, if he said it, I disagree." And was like, "No, I'm just kidding." And like, listen, bro, I feel you. I love to make jokes too. You're the president. You're the one that's supposed to be
yeah,
like,
exactly.
Anyway, that's that. We're gonna move on. To
The riots in France, baby.
Yes. So I'm sure people have seen, and we're gonna play some videos here of millions of people in the streets in Paris. Like directly in response to this new Prime Minister Emmanuel Macron's plan to raise the legal retirement age from, I believe, 64 to 66. And that is, well, yeah, sorry.
Really? That's what they're rioting over?
Right.
I knew there was riots, but I didn't know that's what.
What's on the surface.
Okay.
But I think people are sort of, what's really happening here is waking up to the authoritarian creep of these supposed liberal democracy leaders. I mean, Emmanuel Macron is a good example, but it's happened all over supposedly bastions of democracy. Canada with Trudeau. We saw sort of his creep towards fascism with the truckers' protest. And this protest is very similar in the government's response of like, there's a video, I'll play this video of this cop just shooting indiscriminately into a car with a machine gun and killing 2 people. Like, that is what's supposed to happen in, like...
That was in France?
Yeah, exactly. That was in Paris, not, the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Like,
okay, yeah. So they see I guess a snowball that's starting to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and they're trying to squash it where it stands.
And France, just for people who don't know, is a country who, like, rioting is their pastime. They have like yellow vest protests. The French Revolution goes back even way before that to, like, it's in their blood. They like to demonstrate. It's part of their culture. But this is different because this is not just, and granted, the numbers alone would tell you it's different, but this is not just people showing up in the streets. These are workers galvanizing around, organizing. The trash is piled up, 5-6 feet high on the streets because the garbage collectors aren't taking anymore.
Fucking stick it to them, baby.
Exactly. So I do think this is about more than just 2 years. This is about the working class people seeing like, wow, we really are being fucked. Like, we thought these people had our best interests in mind, and then after COVID and sort of these now global,
like
they're not the things that have been happening in the banking sector. They're not necessarily disasters yet, but we're just seeing all these Credit Suisse and Deutsche Bank, and obviously the stuff that was spurred by Silicon Valley Bank, all these private banks getting bailed out. Like, meanwhile, most people still on an average basis, even in Europe, I mean, especially in America, but even in Europe still, most people are living paycheck to paycheck because these oligarchs that are global, this is not just about one country anymore. These are multinational corporations, people, hedge funds, sovereign wealth funds, the people who control them, the billionaires who run everything. I think the working class is finally saying, all right, fuck this. We're done. We have enough information at our fingertips, even though there is a massive sprawling campaign to keep people disinformed and misinformed. People are still seeing every day, shit, man, we're really being screwed over. Like, I think it's time to get it together. And France is a really good example of that.
Well, I think, and we've talked about it before, and that's what we do here. Independent journalism really kind of, I think helps with that a lot because,
I agree.
I mean, even me, myself, I get my news not really I'll see what they're talking about almost to like get an idea of just like, what shit are they spewing today?
Yeah.
But I mean, and I've also said this on this podcast before that I didn't think that, change was necessarily possible because you needed so many people to get together.
Right.
And, I don't know if I'm ready to completely go on the other side of that, but I'm definitely, I'm seeing a little bit of a change.
The tide is turning.
And I don't want to call it wokeness because like that, I just don't like that. But like,
I was listening to Marianne Williamson today getting interviewed by Andrew Yang. She ran on the Democratic, as a Democratic candidate for president in 2020, and was basically like laughed at and mocked and joked. And she was talking about how there was someone put together like a panel of all the women were running, and it was Kamala Harris and Amy Klobuchar and Elizabeth Warren and Kirsten Gillibrand. All this, like, you know, this is the most historic field of women candidates to run for Democratic primary ever. And Marianne Williamson was left off because she's a largely anti-establishment candidate. And listen, she's also like a crazy crystals bitch. Like, I don't want to, you know, paint her out to be something she's not, but I don't mean that as like a
but she was
a slight. I love that, but she was saying now she recently announced her candidate for presidency. She's the only person that's on the Democratic side that's announced that she'll be running against Joe Biden. And she said people are noticing now. She's got a lot more traction. She's, you know,
whereas before it was like an afterthought.
Right, exactly. And
last campaign when Vogue magazine did a spread of all the women candidates. I was a woman candidate. I was left out of the story. And also you're seeing right now actually polls online of Democratic possibilities. I'm the only one who's actually declared, right, other than the obvious, you know, inevitability of the Biden, we assume, of the Biden campaign. Everybody's listed on there, and I'm not listed on there. But you know what the difference is this time? People are noticing that. That's what I think is interesting. I think that there's been a kind of awakening on all kinds of levels among the American people over the last few years. I don't think that people will take as easily to that obvious
omission
distraction technique. I hope not, anyway.
So
I think it's a mistake for her to run as a Democrat. I think she should run as an independent. But regardless, the tide is turning. I think we're seeing it now. These people are, you know, polling numbers on people who believe we were way too authoritarian during COVID. Or, you know, in retrospect, do you see that video that they released the Fauci document, I think, on HBO, and him and the mayor of DC, Muriel Bowser, were going door to door trying to educate people about the vaccine, and like I think it was the 13th ward, is like the poorest neighborhood in DC.
Oh my God.
And like the poor people were answering the door and being like educating Fauci, being like, you guys can't tell us, you can't assure us that this doesn't won't stop us from getting infected.
Yeah.
So I heard that it doesn't cure it, and it doesn't stop you from getting it.
No.
So
on the very, very, very rare chance that you do get it, even if you're vaccinated, it's you don't even feel sick. It's like you don't even know you got infected. It's very, very good at protecting you.
Just the Anacostia, so get up there. Okay.
All right, see you later.
Thank you. Have a good day.
The people in America are not settled with the information that's been given to us right now. So I'm not going to be lining up taking a shot or a vaccination for something that wasn't clear in the first place. And then you all create a shot in miraculous time. It takes years to create vaccination.
Well, it used to take years.
Okay, it used to.
You know how many years were invested in this approach? About 20 years of science to get us to be able to do it.
20 years is not enough. And 9 months is definitely not enough for nobody to be taking no vaccination that you all came up with.
The only reason I'm talking to you right now, as close as we are, is that I've been vaccinated.
Right.
But if it allows thousands of people like you don't get vaccinated, you're going to let this virus continue to percolate in this country and in this world.
Something like the common flu then, right?
And not
It's
like
much
the common
more
flu.
serious than the flu.
Well, the flu kills a lot of people annually, too.
You know how many people died of the flu the last year? I mean, not this year, virtually none, but the previous year, about 20 to 30,000. You know how many people have died from COVID-19 in the United States? 600,000 Americans.
Well, the number that you all giving that died, that's once again, that's you all's number.
You gonna pass?
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Because when you start talking about paying people to get vaccinated, when you start talking about incentivizing things to get people vaccinated, there's something else going on with that. Something else going on.
It is something going on with
something else.
You're right. But I'm glad millions of people like me and most everybody here didn't get an incentive. You know what their incentive was? Protecting their health and protecting the city. But I won't keep you anymore.
It's okay, because my incentive, y'all campaign is about fear. It's about inciting fear in people. You all attack people with fear. That's what this pandemic is. It's a fear. It's fear, this pandemic. That's all it is.
It's like feeding them the typical bullshit, and they were like, no.
Oh,
like,
I love that, actually.
Right,
I thought you were going to say, like, he was just going around, and I mean,
just jabbing people in the arm?
Well, no, this is what he was doing, but I'm glad it wasn't working. Like, he's basically just trying to spoon feed everybody propaganda.
Correct, yes.
You know? And Wow, yeah, no, I didn't expect that outcome. I'm actually really happy about that.
And Tucker Carlson was like kind of like smugly was like, oh, people of the 13th ward, they may be poor, but they're not dumb.
Right.
So you don't have to be like a dick about it, bro. But all right, whatever. But I just talk in sentiment every day. I think I like to talk to people. I'm a people person, and I think and maybe people are just like telling me what I want to hear because they want to avoid confrontation. But I really do think for the most part, people are like, yeah, we need to like have a paradigm shift in the way we think about
something
where our power is.
And I think maybe like, at least where I'm at, because I definitely do think, there needs to be some sort of shift.
Yeah.
But I just don't know what that looks like. And it's kind of it's a scary thing to rock the boat, It's one thing knowing the devil rather than the devil you don't.
Well, at this point, fuck the devil, I know.
I know. I mean, this devil's pretty bad.
Yeah. Again, like 60% of Americans can't afford a $5,000 or $500 emergency. People
no, I think you're right about
paycheck
that.
to paycheck. Like this is not working.
No, it's not working.
And like I've been reading. I'm on a economy kick right now. I've been reading a lot of books about the economy. I just read Bernie Sanders' book.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to be angry about capitalism, and I think he beats around the bush a little bit because he's for some reason like afraid to piss off the Democratic establishment too much because God forbid they steal a third election from him. But like he is basically like we need to get money out of politics. That's easy for me. And like Medicare for all. And you said I don't know what that looks like. I think it has to look like citizens, individuals, workers organizing separately from the government. I mean, in America, we have a separation of church and state, which was formed, our Constitution was formed at a time where organized religion was as powerful as now most organized states are. And the power has shifted from theocracy to
and actually,
the state. And I think now we have to turn, what the founding fathers were to rebelling against England and the church. I think workers need to do that now and because pretty soon AI is coming and we are going to have no power whatsoever in any of the economy. I know, but this is the chance. This is the time to take a foothold.
No, I mean, and you're right, because if it does just keep going the way it is, AI is going to replace truck drivers and, accountants, everything under
journalists,
the sun.
Apparently.
And I do think that there needs to be like some sort of law like protecting, people's jobs from that.
I saw, like South Korea has a robot tax, which I think is, and it actually turns out it's not even a tax. It's just they're withholding tax benefits from companies instead of like giving them the tax breaks that they were giving them. Like, oh, you made robots, you don't get that tax break. Whatever.
Oh, okay. So there's like a penalty for it.
I truly think that this is by the way like kind of the definition of socialism, but this is something Tucker Carlson has actually agreed with. And he was arguing with Ben Shapiro about it. There should be every company that makes profits from AI, part of that should be taxed and go to a fund that they use to pay either their workers or workers that have been displaced by that technology.
By the AI. No, I can stand behind that 100%.
But that is the definition of socialism. And that word was the boogeyman for the right wing for so long. And we have to get to a place where we don't we need to view the economy as not black and white between capitalism and socialism, because it's been mixed forever. The Farmers Credit Union is the biggest financial institution in the world, and it basically subsidizes farmers and pays them no matter what, whether their crop yield is good or bad. That's socialism.
Is it still socialism if they take that, like, I guess, tax or whatever that that number is, and they're distributing it like within their privately owned company? Well, all right, so like you were like, okay, there's going to be like some tax and it goes into an account.
Okay, so we're talking about like what I'm proposing here.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And like
hold on, your mic went out.
It went out?
Yeah, unplug the thing and plug it back in. And try to stop fucking with it if you can.
Yeah. Test.
Good, you're good. Go on.
Fuck. What did I just say?
Are you saying that is about the taxes?
Okay, yeah. So, because I understand how it's socialism if they take that money and they give it to the people that were displaced by it. And like I said, I can get around on that. Like, right. I really don't mind that at all. But is it still considered socialism if they give that money to like workers within their company and within like a private firm and stuff like that.
I mean, that's actually what, the original corporations, when Ford basically invented mass production, that's what they did.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with that is you can make that a monopoly, and you can go, okay, if you give them real cold hard cash, cool. And no, it's not socialism. It's a company.
Okay,
that's just a different form of compensation.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, it's almost like shares in the company,
right? But that is where the problem might lie. Is then depending on how you structure it. Like one big thing Ford did was like he would pay people extra in like Ford bucks, which you could only use in the town.
Okay.
So there's different ways. It really depends on how you do it.
So that opens up a lot of loopholes and stuff like that.
It does, but the profits that are going to be made from AI, I think, are going to be way too big to be like, okay, you can each handle this within your own company. And I don't fucking trust I
don't trust them either.
Our current deregulated environment. We saw what just happened with SVB, and it's probably going to continue to happen with these if interest rates keep going up, because more of these banks' business models are predicated on low interest rates. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
We need to bring back the mom and pop shops.
Yeah, I strongly believe that people need to go back to just taking care of their communities and decentralizing and take power out of the hand of the federal government, let it handle the military, and that's it basically. Like education, go to the states.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Fed has way too much power. Like let states do their own banking. That's so far off from like where we are now, but like
at least we're seeing a tide that's going in that direction.
Yeah,
or that could go in that direction. I don't want to say it's definitively going.
The
in that
problem
direction.
is there are huge, powerful, rich, massive interests that have
powers to stop the tide
and every reason to not want these things to happen. So that's why I think the next 10, 15 years are gonna be some of the most tumultuous in human history, and that's for many reasons. But demographic shifts. We're gonna see a huge. I think we're gonna hit 10 billion by 2040, and then we're gonna drop. We talk about this all the time in the show.
Yeah, no, I know.
It scares the shit out of me. The entire world is built on a growth economy, and the availability of cheap credit and ubiquitous labor, and all of that is going to dry up soon.
I'm talking about not knowing what what things would look like. I have no idea what the fuck that would look like in a world where our economy,
it's scary.
Our population is just drastically downfalling.
Yeah, America's gonna be fine. Everywhere else, you say like, oh, I wonder what that looks like. We're already seeing what that looks like. Russia is largely the aggressor. It is because it has to be. It's losing resources. It has minimal farmland, and its people. Again, it's another country experiencing population absolute drop off. So that's one symptom. That's one side effect of demographic decline and empire decay is desperation, throwing up some heaves. And
I would have never looked at it like that.
Right. See, but cause and effect, and it's not the only reason. Like part of it is Putin's strategy. This he's had this dream of reuniting the Soviet Union forever, but part of that dream is we also kind of need those grain fields and that fucking nuclear plant in Zaporizhzhia.
No, I thought you used a good word there. Like you called it symptoms almost, of.
Yeah. It's all connected, man. Everything's connected. And you could point to one thing and say, this is the reason this happened. And it could be 8% of the reason. It could be 25%.
Well, right. I was going to say, I feel like everything has a million different things coming out of it for
threads
whatever
everywhere.
reason.
Threads everywhere. Dude, that's why I got really into reconnecting with reading. Because after I graduated high school and in college, I only read what I had to. So the past couple years, I've been falling back in love with reading, and everything I read, from geopolitics to economics to fitness to the mind, psychology, sociology, psychedelic drugs, everything. I find something that I could thread back to the last book I read and end up being like Charlie Day from It's Always Sunny.
Pepe Sylvia.
Yeah, literally. So I don't know.
Well, that's good though, because I don't think most people would draw that line.
I think a lot of people do. I don't. I just think again, this goes back to what I was saying before about these powerful interests blasting us with dis and misinformation, and we're not going to talk about it today. I would love to. I'm going to hopefully do a couple videos myself, solo dolo this week, one on SVB, but another one I'd like to cover some Twitter file stuff, some new revelations from Matt Taibbi about like Stanford and their involvement with like higher ed is involved with the government and these initiatives to curb COVID misinformation. And I'll post a link to the thread in the show notes because we don't have much time to go over this, but like all these CIA, FBI, DHS, NIA, and then Stanford, and then in cooperation with Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and all these big tech social media companies, they were flagging. They had a dedicated ticket system, so like they could all put in a ticket to be like, hey, this is a post we need taken down. And a lot of them were, one of their categories was not just misinformation, it was true information that could cause vaccine hesitancy. So like just because it's true, it's still
we don't want it.
It makes people think the thing that we don't want them to think. So no more of that. Like
they're not going to take our drugs.
And so this is why I think there is a powerful force against the reality of the democratization of information, because we have this incredible tool that is the internet and has changed things in such a powerful and amazing way. There is, I think it's Newton's third law of thermodynamics. What goes up must comes down. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. It's, they need to counter this power. And the best way to do that, again, I think I've made this reference before, is like that episode of The Office when Michael accidentally lets it leak that Jim and Pam are pregnant. Instead of taking it back, which you can't, the cat's out of the bag, you just put out as much bullshit as you can and drown people and make them tired and be like, oh my God, I'm so sick of hearing about Ukraine and COVID and I just want to watch the Kardashians. Like, that's what's going on.
Yeah, no. Well,
and that's why that's why part of why I wanted to do this podcast. That's part of why I tell people all the time, you have a responsibility for the information that goes in your head, for the shit that you fucking take into your face. That's on you. Everyone needs to do a better job, myself included, by the way, of what's the word I'm looking for? Vetting, like
courting?
Not courting, but like going through vetting, like having a process of information gathering and evaluation.
You're talking about as yourself going through.
Correct. Like your filter. You need
I like
to
vetting.
Work on your filter and your critical thinking skills and your ability to. What did I do here? Ruh-roh. Okay, no, we're good.
Ability to almost look at what's not right and wrong, but what's blatantly bullshit and what's not.
And just one of the tools we use on this show all the time is cui bono, who benefits.
Right.
And follow the money. Those are two great ones. Anytime you
I like to follow the money one.
Anytime you don't know what to believe, think about, well, who gains to benefit from this thing being true? Who gains to benefit from it being false? And go from there.
And I think us, the people, are catching up to, the way technology is used in terms of how they suppress our information.
Yeah, thank God for the Twitter files. And listen, say what you will about him, and Elon Musk right now is kind of carrying water for the Indian government and Narendra Modi, their prime minister, and he's banning people that guy doesn't want, which nobody cares about because it's about fucking people halfway across the world that aren't white.
He's like, that's all the way over there. Nobody's even going to see it.
And Marjorie Taylor Greene got banned today for stuff she was saying about the, not permanently, I think suspended, but stuff she was saying about the Nashville shooting and transgender people. So like Elon Musk is not perfect, and he's a billionaire oligarch, and he will protect his own interests. But thank God for the fact that he bought Twitter, because we wouldn't know about. Someone like me would guess and be like, yeah, I was pretty sure they were doing that. But now it's out there for everybody to see. And again, Twitter Files hasn't been covered by any major news network, maybe Fox News, but like
it's just Taibbi.
Yeah, and he was on Capitol Hill. I forget what the Senate subcommittee for the weaponization of, I don't know, some bullshit like that. I'll put it in the graphic. But Debbie Wasserman Schultz, coincidentally, the congressperson this year who made the most money in the stock market, just throwing that out there, called him a so-called journalist, and people are calling him a right-winger. This is a person who wrote a book about Donald Trump called The Insane Clown President. Like, this is not a right-winger. This is a veteran reporter that may have come to conclusions you don't like. That doesn't mean you just slander someone's good name.
That was right in front of his face, right? In Congress.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Ranking Member Plaskett, I'm not a so-called journalist. I've won the National Magazine Award, the I.F. Stone Award for Independent Journalism, and I've written 10 books, including 4 New York Times New York Times bestsellers.
And then like all the Republicans were like, oh, so-called journalists, they were reflecting his record, defending his record. Like, great, I'm glad you're doing that. It's just, you know, it's only because it serves your interests at the moment. Like, you know, DC is so partisan. Everyone is so self-serving. Like, they're even Bernie Sanders, who like I wanted to win in 2016 and in 2020. Like, reading his book, it was just so like, you could be more bold here. Like, you could be asking for more. You could be not letting Joe Biden and the Democrats off the hook for, you know, fucking you over and over again.
Like, you
like
put your foot out there a little bit more, almost. Like, well, I don't understand.
He just like for example, in the book, he was like, like the Iowa caucuses for the Democratic primary. Iowa was, I don't think they will be this year. I think the Dems are trying to make it South Carolina because Joe Biden won South Carolina. But Iowa was and typically is the first state to
I think
vote in the primaries. Yeah, and they had an app and it went faulty, and that caused some news outlets to report that Pete Buttigieg won, some outlets to report that Bernie Sanders won. The DNC was like, oh, we don't know, let's call it a tie for now. And then like 2 weeks later, it was like, oh yeah, Bernie did win those delegates. But the whole thing about Iowa, the whole thing about winning Iowa, the whole reason that candidates put so much money into winning there is because you win the first one, you get an incredible amount of momentum, especially in a race where you have a field of 16, I believe the Democrats had, or something wild like that. All those women we named before, and Buttigieg and Biden and whoever the fuck else.
He didn't get that boost.
He did not get that. You know, in American elections, especially where, you know, I mean, a lot of people knew Bernie by 2020, but that is still the for people who don't know you, that's the first impression they get. And if the first impression they get of you is that you're a winner, that's huge.
No,
if the first impression they get is you tied that gay mayor from Indiana, whatever. I'm not that pumped about you anymore. You know what I mean?
Pete Buttigieg has just been a big old failure in his.
Well, he got that. He specifically got transport because it's a cushy job. It's in the cabinet, but it's like, hey, you're on the bench. We want you. You know, hang in there because this guy might die, and we'll bump you up to VP once or maybe we'll run you in 24 or 28. Not expecting like the past 3 years to be like the worst possible years to have that job ever. Like the airline industry tanked, like trains are just crashing and smoke plumes are coming up everywhere. Like
that's true. I mean, he did kind of put her in a shitty situation.
Literally the worst possible time. But no sympathy because guess what? Should have pick someone qualified instead of the guy that you just like.
Yeah, instead of the guy that you just wanted to put on your fucking bench.
Yeah, that's literally what do they call that? Like when you ever have a girl who has a boyfriend but is still kind of flirting with you, you're like, she's like saving you for later. I forget the word for that. Doesn't matter. Yeah, anyway. Doesn't matter. I want to move on, but before we do, I just want to show this video because it's really funny of Macron defending himself on news and being like, oh, like, you know, I care about my people. Like, I'm still someone who cares about the working class. And then realizing while he's doing that, he has a $60,000 gold watch on and like carefully like slipping it off like during the interview. I'll play it right now. It's crazy.
Il y a les blocages, et les blocages, il faut pouvoir les lever quand ils empêchent l'activité normale. Et c'est pourquoi d'ailleurs, c'est pourquoi j'ai demandé au gouvernement d'essayer au maximum de négocier et ensuite de réquisitionner. Ce que nous avons pu faire sur les ordures ménagères, par exemple, dans certaines grandes villes.
Yeah, so I just wanted to play that, and we'll move on to our next piece of international news, which is the relationship between China and Russia as America continues to go down the path that Donald Trump set us on with America First, which basically just meant fuck everybody else, as we pull away from the world stage. And Joe Biden has been no better about being more of a friend to the world, because even though you look at sort of the geopolitical picture of America's role in the Ukraine-Russia war, it's a proxy war. America's sending weapons to Ukraine because if Russia gets it, then
they're closer.
They're not only closer to all our NATO allies, they're also just more powerful, and we can't have that. Which is fine. You know, Russia, it's atrocities. They're committing war crimes. They're dropping chemical weapons and using thermobaric ammunitions. Like the ICC issued an arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin. But with that, we're now kind of seeing the global world order, which the U.S. has been the steward of since the end of World War II for 70, almost nearly 80 years now. it's collapsing. So like I just said, the ICC issued an arrest warrant for Putin. South Africa was like, hey, Putin, not only are we not going to respect this warrant, come through, like hang out. South Africa is a country who's in their own fucking bit of turmoil. But anyway, this relationship between Russia and China, Xi Jinping visited Moscow last week to reaffirm their economic relationship. Xi Jinping, for those who don't know, is China's, I don't know what they call him, president, prime minister, great leader.
The big one.
Yeah, exactly. He's the head honcho. And he was in Moscow reaffirming their economic ties and working on a peace plan. China is the only country in the world, definitely for sure the most powerful, to advocate for peace in Ukraine and put out an actual plan, which we're now starting to see some countries get behind, not least of which is Russia. And now Saudi Arabia. China brokered a peace talk between Saudi Arabia and Iran, which is huge because one of the few things Trump's critics give him credit for is the Abraham Accords. It's a historic Israeli peace negotiation between like 4 or 5 Arab countries. I forget all of them, but like I think Sudan is one of them. And that was a big major piece of legislation, big step towards peace in the Middle East. And like that's been America's role, is to be the facilitator. China was like, no one likes you, America. Like, we're doing this now. And like Saudi Arabia is supposed to be one of America's biggest allies, is now buying and selling oil to Russia in rubles, whatever the fuck their currency is.
I think it's rubles, yeah.
Rubles, which is disastrous for the American economy, which is, since we got off the gold standard, is basically our money's based on oil. It's based on the, full faith and treasure of the U.S., which Moody's downgraded after the fucking SVB disaster.
Right.
So,
and I think that made a lot of people distrust banks a lot more.
Right. And really, the where I'm going with this, like, let me put this graphic up, which is OECD, which is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. It's like U.S. It's basically all our NATO allies and the more developed countries in the world. I think Japan's in there. Our GDP I'll put this graphic up, compared to BRIC, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, just completely. They're on their way up. We're on our way down. They just passed us. They're for the collective GDP, I think, per capita, which is not great.
No, honestly, like with all the facts that you've presented me to this point, it just seems like a matter of time,
right?
If we don't get our head out of our ass.
Yeah, and luckily for us, India and China are basically in a little bit of a war themselves, sort of constant border skirmishes. They just had one recently that the U.S. provided intel for, which is for India to combat China. So that relationship is somewhat safe with India, and it's going to be crucial going forward because clearly China is, and China has something called the Belt and Road Initiative, which is basically turning all of Africa and like Eastern Europe into vessel states, like economic colonies. Basically, they go in, they agree to build these poor countries huge infrastructure projects and say all the revenue is ours. Though, have
they done that?
Oh yeah, it's well underway at this point.
Really? Wow, that's scary.
A lot of West Africa's population, like after Native Africans, is migrant Chinese workers.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
So China's getting a foothold, and in doing so, like when America kicked, not just America and all its allies, kicked Russia off the SWIFT banking system, Russia's currency went through the fucking roof. Like, so far, nothing we're doing is working. We're pushing all our allies into the hands of, again, the unholy alliance.
Well, that's what it seems like. I mean, it just seems like they're talking it out over there, figuring it out, and we're just over here fucking spinning in circles and, trying to figure out our own shit, and we're just throwing shit at each other.
Right. Which, again, at the end of the day, all the powers that be are none the worse for wear. Raytheon and Boeing make their defense contracts.
I don't even know how to, like...
Mark Hamill does a voice over for an alarm an air raid siren, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's fucking great! Yay, Star Wars!" It's like, no, children are dying. This is not
right. This isn't like oh, thank God he did the recording kind of thing.
Yeah, except it is like that's the thing that people in America are like, "Oh yeah, like this, we're supporting Ukraine. We put the flag up, and yay, Mark Hamill." No, you're dumb. Like peace. That's what we should all be fighting for. Well,
yeah, one step at a time. Let's get our shit together over here and.
Well, and like at this point, we're too deep in to be like, okay, it's everyone just call it a day in Ukraine. You give them Donbass. That's not happening. But in the early days of the war, it maybe could have. And then Boris Johnson, under the direction of the U.S., advised Zelensky to be like, no peace. We're going for it. Like, you're going to get all of Ukraine or nothing, which...
Yeah, and then Putin's inevitably going to come and try to take it back one day.
Right. So, I don't know. I just kind of wanted to... we could go so much deeper on that, but I just kind of wanted people to be aware of the growing relationship between China and Russia, and...
Freaks me out more than anything.
This is from Peter Zion, who kind of... I think that the neoconservative, neoliberal platform is you have to acknowledge this relationship, but then everyone is also trying to say, well, listen, China is still not stupid. They still want to be a global player, and they can't run fully into the arms of Russia and still do that, which is true. But I think people are looking in the wrong place at this. This is not about China and Russia. This is about China filling the power vacuum that the U.S. has left, and not in terms of military might, but in actual soft power and being like they're winning hearts and minds.
They're turning into the new world police.
Right, exactly. And they don't have the reach to be the world police, but at least in their region, if they become the hegemon, there's not much we're going to be able to do about it.
Well, and they might not be the world police right now, but, at one point, the United States wasn't the world police. Things take time, things change. I hope that doesn't happen.
It's not going to, because, again, demographics. When they fall, they're going to fall hard. But right now, apparently, they're still biding enough time to... I don't know what they're going to do, honestly.
I don't fucking know what they're going to do.
That's this guy, Peter Zion, that's his whole, demographic spiel. It's like, China is not going to exist as a nation in 30 years.
That confuses me.
Just because, they've been pulling so many people out of rural farm areas to be workers in their massively growing cities for so long, and they've been killing the second child.
That they're just gonna dissipate.
Most of them women. That's how it works.
No, I understand. Yeah, I mean, but then so this is like their last. This is desperation mode kind of thing. This is another one of those. Like, we can see the way the trend is going, so we got to make moves.
Right, and that's why I think this is such an unholy alliance. Is two very desperate people,
two dogs back into the back.
Yep, and if we only had to, if the person sitting across from us was China or Russia at the poker table, that's one thing. But it's really specifically Xi and Putin calling all the shots. They have both created an environment which they can't be questioned. Everyone who goes against them dies. They are insulated. They're both probably fucking insane.
Yeah.
So we don't know where that's gonna lead us.
Maybe some meth in there.
Who knows? I mean, if I was rich, I'd be doing drugs all the time. So, probably. Hitler was methed up, wasn't he?
That's why I said it.
Yeah. I don't know. Putin does kind of strike me as a straight and narrow. Trump doesn't drink or do drugs. Well, he definitely does Adderall. He has to do Adderall.
Well, yeah, I think he takes something to straighten him out. Or
it's such an interesting thing.
And I definitely think Biden takes something, because some days he's I can actually listen to him, and then some days he's talking about ice cream, and I'm like, what the fuck's going on?
I don't I can't believe they're gonna run him again.
It's gonna be an interesting election.
Yeah, it is. We're gonna have to start gearing up for that coverage soon. # primary season.
Let's go.
Yeah, but okay. So speaking of that, the man who may very well be the Republican candidate for president may be running from a jail cell. I wanted to close with this because I spent last Tuesday, I went to the city because on Sunday night or maybe Saturday night, Donald Trump announced on Truth Social that I'll put the, here, let me pull the tweet up.
I heard he wants a perp walk.
See, it's so annoying, Truth Social, because I'm trying to Google it. I'm like, Trump Truth Social tweet?
Yeah,
what is
right?
it?
Like
a truth?
Yeah.
I think that is what it's called.
Truth bomb.
That's a good one. That's what they should call it. Just while I pull this up, it is very funny that Trump said he was going to be indicted, and everybody was like, "For what?" And it's not because it's nothing. It's
just
because
like, which
so
one?
much.
And it's the Stormy Daniels thing, right?
It is the Stormy Daniels thing, and which is funny because it's probably like the thing that people care about the least.
I know. I was like, of all things, like that's what they're gonna get him for.
I'm trying to find this tweet. Oh, this is not the first one, but this is one from 4 days ago on the 24th, where he warned that. So Friday morning he said, filing charges against him could result in potential death and destruction. Like, come on, bro. Did you not learn your lesson from January 6th? Like, is there no one around him who's like, just don't do that?
But that's how he is. You go against him, you go against the powers that be, and the only way for you to keep going is to just go into the ground.
And his supporters, to their credit, were all basically like, because I'm in a couple of Telegram channels just to like
see what's going on,
keep the pulse, and they were all like, "Oh, there's gonna be feds. Like, don't do it. Like, nobody go." And I went to New York Tuesday morning to see what's up, and there was a couple weirdos.
Well, I heard there was just listening to breaking points earlier. One of them was in the city, and they're like, "Yeah, there's a lot of Secret Service around." Like,
yeah. So, and I don't know if it was Eric Adams or if it was the governor, but Kathy Hochul. But Tuesday they were all in response to this sort of. And I'm not gonna call it a conspiracy theorist because there were a lot of plainclothes feds in the Capitol on January 6th. That's like on the record.
Mm-hmm.
But the musings of the right wing that this may be another setup. Eric Adams was like, all police officers are to wear their uniforms, like no plainclothes, and like we want you all out.
Yeah.
So, but that I don't know if I actually said it at the top, but that was because Trump basically said, I'm going to be indicted by this Soros backed prosecutor, Alvin Bragg.
George Soros is the one that takes him down, man.
Yeah, which I do believe Soros did contribute to this guy's campaign. I don't know if he was like handpicked by him.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, it hasn't happened yet. And it's over. It's over a week since he made this pronouncement.
And wasn't something else supposed to happen? And then, or he was supposed to stand in front of.
He was gonna get arraigned and indicted, according to him, and then multiple inside sources. I don't know what else would have happened.
I think the grand jury was supposed to vote on his indictment.
Oh, and they pushed that back.
And then
I
they
believe.
pushed it back.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
But regardless, part of why I wanted to talk about it is about his, I think, irresponsibility and being like, hey, remember that time I riled up all my supporters and we almost hung Mike Pence? Let's do it again. Like, and that's also while holding the position that a lot of these people that are getting arrested for January 6th are the definition of political prisoners. They're not like treasonous dissidents. They're fucking morons who got fooled into believing some bullshit. Like these are not people who should be spending 4 years in jail like hardened criminals. They're
just like, hey, like
dipshits.
Don't do what he says again, or you're gonna be like this guy.
Right. But then Trump again, he's like, hey,
fuck, dude.
No, he really doesn't. So that I did want to highlight that I think that's wildly irresponsible and just stupid. If you want to win the nomination, which is decreasing like a possibility, the more he attacks Ron DeSantis, calling him like a meatball and like de-sanctimonious. He was on Sean Hannity the other night and he was like, Ron DeSantis came to me crying.
I saw it, dude.
Asking for my endorsement.
Oh my God.
And he was like, this is what I told Ron. I said, George Washington and Abraham Lincoln could come out of their graves tomorrow and endorse you and you wouldn't win. But I decided to endorse him and he won. I was like, oh, damn, bro.
And he's just like, he would be nothing. Basically saying he would be nothing without him.
Trying to cement his position as kingmaker, despite the fact that everybody in the midterms except J.D. Vance that he endorsed lost. Herschel Walker, like Carrie Lake, like everybody.
I remember that did not go the way anybody thought it was going to go.
No. So, not a good look for him. And I don't care who the Republican nominee is. For the country's sake, I hope it's not Trump. For my own sake of I'm very entertained by the man. I hope it is.
Mm-hmm. I am quite entertained by him too.
Yeah. And I don't really care what happens because I don't think Trump is was this major far departure from the status quo, from the status quo that the Republicans that voted for him thought he was. And I don't think he was the, danger to democracy monster that I think the Democrats thought he was. I think he pretty much governed like any normal establishment Republican, despite the fact that he said he was going to drain the swamp, build a wall, not gut Obamacare. He did all of those. Actually, I don't think he promised not to gut Obamacare, but he promised to give people good health care, which he did not. But anyway, point being, this indictment, it looks like it might happen. I think it's a pretty solid 50-50 right now. But it's definitely, I think, the closest any former president has gotten to be indicted. And I've heard a few arguments on it. Like I heard Jon Stewart on Mehdi Hassan show. I think Mehdi Hassan is MSNBC. He's CNN or MSNBC. He's like a liberal journalist. And he was basically like, but John, are we really going to indict the former sitting president? What does that say about precedent? What does that say about the next guy? Blah, blah, blah. And Jon Stewart was like, oh, you can't just, yeah, sure, let's not indict a guy because of what might happen. It's like, no, it's about precedent. And it's
it's almost about accountability. It's holding the next person accountable.
And the last ones. If you're going to fucking jail Trump for campaign finance violations for paying off a porn star, which we all agree he shouldn't have done, and also nobody fucking cares, are we going to hold George Bush responsible for lying about weapons of mass destruction?
Yeah, everybody
and
else.
Dick Cheney, is Obama going to go to jail for bombing Yemeni weddings? How far back you want to go?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think it's divisive and stupid. And if this is the one that you're going to pin him on, how about the emoluments clause? About the fact that he didn't divest any of his businesses, place him into a blind trust, just gave him to his kids and said, I promise I'm not looking. How about the fact that he fucking, what was the other big one? He got impeached twice, and neither of those things are the subject of this.
You paid a porn star. Here we draw the line.
It's my problem with it is not the act itself. From a moral standpoint, I would have no problem with Trump going to jail in a vacuum. I'm sure there's plenty of things he's done that were prison worthy. Mm-hmm. The problem is how it has a larger effect on the country.
Right, it's the precedent that it sets.
And it's the, I don't really appreciate divisiveness. I think there are a lot of conversations that are on mainstream media, not a lot of them, sorry. All conversations that are on mainstream media are not brought up with the intent to inform. They're brought up with the intent to divide. That is my genuine opinion. And this is more the same to me.
Well, Tucker even said it on he was on the Nelk Boys podcast.
I watched that. That was a good interview.
And he was just like, we're not here to inform you.
Yeah.
And if you think we are, it's stupid.
That was really...
I still don't really love Tucker as a human being, but I respected that.
Well, he fessed up for supporting the Iraq war.
Yeah.
And was like, that was a mistake. I mean, people need to start doing that more, and for things more recently, especially people who were gung-ho about COVID. You guys need to all fucking look at the data and be like, oh shit, we
take 20 years to take accountability for something.
Yeah, and we probably did way more damage with our response to the virus than the virus did to us.
Just with how crazy everybody fucking reacted to everything?
With not letting people see their loved ones, that diseases of despair shot up, alcoholism.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a long
domestic abuse, the effect that we're still not going to see for 10, 15 years on children's development. We're going to see way more social, interaction and just sort of mental issues that have to, Asperger's is going to shoot up because people don't know how to interact with each other anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, all these corporations got filthy rich. The biggest upward transfer of wealth in human history. It was basically just a robbery of, the middle class.
Middle class disappearing.
It's gone.
Yeah.
It's gone, bro. Again, 60% of people living paycheck to paycheck. Those other 40 are not just chilling. You know, they're
no right. I mean,
they're probably
a paycheck and a half ahead, maybe.
yeah, but really, it's for the most part poor and rich. Like there really is. The middle class is for the most part gone.
I mean, you see it. I mean, almost everywhere you go. Even, you know, you go out. I don't want to say. I was gonna make a stupid point. Cut this part.
I don't know. I don't know what you're gonna say, but it felt like you're gonna be onto something.
Well, like you go out with friends and stuff, and you have certain friends that are literally buying everything, like no problem. And then you got other friends that.
You talk about me because I just put it all on credit and then change my identity every 3 months.
No, and I'm not even like. I'm not talking about anybody specifically. Even though it sounds like I am, and that's why I kind of wanted to just cut this part.
No, it's fine. We're gonna leave it. No, we can cut it if you want. But I think you make a good point. I will just counter by saying that this generation puts more on our generation puts more on credit than ever, and we are also the most delinquent in payment generation ever because we don't give a fuck anymore. Like, yeah, we'll worry about later, and if my credit turns to shit. I don't care because my house is gonna be underwater in 5 years. Like the world is ending to most people, at least mentally. And also I was reading another book, this book actually, Secrets of the Temple, about the Fed. And they made the point that in the 70s, that generation, that young, the people that were like 20 years old in the 70s were the first generation to realize that inflation was so constant and like nonstop. What is the word?
Stagnant?
Like, no. Like it inflation was going to continue. It was
right.
It was so
perpetual.
Yeah, it was. There's a word I'm looking for. Fuck, I wish I was a thesaurus.
Indefinite.
Yeah, whatever. All that. It was so inevitable. That's the word. It was so inevitable that it just made more sense to not pay your debts off, and take massive loans out because even if the interest rates were high, the money that you'd be paying it back with later was worth less. So if you owe $20,000 today, and let's say you owe $25,000 in 5 years, you actually might end up paying less because in 5 years, the $25K that you're paying is going to be worth less than the $20K you would have paid. Does that make sense? In terms of your purchasing power.
Well, right.
$25K in 5 years is worth less than $20K is now. That's how crazy inflation is.
Right, but the thing that you bought at that time with $20K appreciates in value.
Well, that depends on what it is, but
yeah, but I mean that's just
not your car.
Well, no, not your car.
But people were still applying the strategy to things with depreciating value because the payments themselves were still worth less in 5 years because of inflation.
So they were just like, I might as well use my buying power now.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
So yes, people are throwing out. I mean, I live in a city where people go out all the time. Yes, people are throwing money around, but that might not mean they have it.
No, I mean, you're right about that. I mean, I'm guilty of that fuck it button. Sometimes, you go out somewhere and next thing you know, you wake up and you're like, I went out last night. Like I make fucking, $10,000 a week and everything's gone.
I don't have a fuck it button. I have. My whole shirt's made of fucking. The buttons are the please stop. Every once in a while, I was like, all right, slow down for a minute, Robbie.
I'm right there with you.
It's pretty much all I had. We did not do the run up this episode because it's our first one back. We wanted to jump right into the issues. We had a couple more things we wanted to cover, including the TikTok CEO's hearing on Capitol Hill. We wanted to cover Matt Taibbi getting threatened by the IRS potentially for his continuing coverage of the federal government's invasion into our lives. And I'm going to hopefully cover a few of those things on my own on our YouTube channel. So please make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube at NextGenForward, FORWARD. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. We are at NextGenForward, at NEXTGEN, the number 4, WARD. And if you like this podcast, please make sure you subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts. Tell your friends, rate it 5 stars, share it on Instagram, tag someone, text someone, give us feedback. We love to hear it.
Definitely love to hear feedback.
Throughout the week, let us know issues you might want us to cover. and we will see you next week.
Good night, everybody.
That was a good one, bro.